Welcome to Masterclass. My name is Thomas Kolstrup. I'm the Gordon Ramsay of advertising. Always pissed off about something isn't good enough and not afraid to speak up. In this class, get ready to roll up your sleeves as I'm sharing the tools and tricks you need to build a meaningful business and a meaningful leadership. People no longer buy why you do what you do. Everybody's claiming to be at some sort of value crusade these days. They buy who you can help them become. I'm one of the most authoritative thinkers in marketing and business for good, also known as Mr. Good Advertising. And across lessons, I will give you hands-on exercises and questions that is equipping you with the skill set to become a true catalyst for change. I've worked across more than 70 markets and I've judged almost every global do-good award show there is. I'm the founder and CEO of the Good Advertising Agency, and we have been transforming leaders, organizations, and businesses before doing good was even that cool a thing to do. And a free word of advice: if you can change yourself, you can change the world. Welcome everyone to this little webinar that I'm really excited about. It's something we haven't done before, which focuses on one of my favorite topics, which is behavior change. Behavior change was one of the sort of key insights, pillars, inspirations when I wrote the second book, The Hero Trap, partly because I actually realized that even though I'm working in this space, it's incredibly difficult to change behaviors. So I'll give you some of the hacks that we work with across our clients, organizations, impact startups. So it should be a lot of fun. So you'll see a lot of creative work, some of it award-winning, some of it I picked up on my travels around the world. But let's first off begin with a little sort of introduction in terms of motivation, because I think these days it's also really about understanding a more life-centric approach to behavior change. So what really does motivate people? And one of the things I'm really happy about is a recent thing I'm doing called Climate Punk. And Climate Punk we started streaming last year with We Don't Have Time, and it was really to try and understand what really motivates people to stand up for climate change. One of the guys I talked to was Chris Jordan, a photographer based out of southern Chile right now. And most of you might know, not his name, but some of his work. So let me show you some of his earlier work from 2006. And this little piece is basically an albatross swallowed or suffocated in ocean plastics. A horrifying image, and I'm sure a lot of you recognize this. Maybe a bit of a hands up to engage with this little live stream. So if some of you have seen it, do let me know. So obviously he's been on a very activistic path through his professional artistic career. And then he shared this image with me on Climate Punk, and I thought it had something to do with rising ocean levels, etc. But Chris actually shared a really, really powerful insight with me, which is in fact that, wait a moment, maybe it isn't the hatred, the anger, the hope that's going to make us act, but love. So basically this image is just a little photo of a beautiful Chilean landscape. So the story of love. So that's, I think, where we need to begin these things. It's like kind of untackling some of those human insights, human observations. And to kick us off, let me begin with a piece of work we did quite a few years ago in the behavior change space. Obviously, as some of you might know, I'm from Copenhagen. This is a very young image of me bicycling in Copenhagen, and probably an even younger one that sort of shows how bicycle crazy I am. This was probably my first bicycle there, called Yellow Lightning, holding a little feather. So a bit of a nature enthusiast already. But why I share this was that basically we got this brief from the city of Copenhagen to get people to use bicycle lights, because as you might know, during the Nordic winters, it's very, very dark. So then the cars can't see the bicycle. So it's a very, very simple brief. We had a long thought about it, and we came up with a simple solution, which was just ban the possibility for bicycle to be sold in the city of Copenhagen without bicycle lights. So very, very simple. Just edit the damn product. Because if you think about it, you wouldn't think that you could buy a car without lights on it, right? So why can you do that with a bicycle? Uh, Obviously, the client didn't really sort of get that. So they sent us back and we had to look at the brief again. So we had a look at the current symbol that are probably recognizable for most of you on this webinar here today. And if you think about it, so they're normalizing, they're showing us the behavior they want us to do. This is a symbol of a bicycle path, but actually the symbol doesn't have any lights on it, even though that is the normal behavior. So in a crazy way, right? If you think about it, this would be the same as having don't throw garbage on the street kind of sign and then actually showing them throwing it on the street. So the very, very simple hack we did was just normalize the behavior, and we added a yellow and a red little light to the bicycle across the city, and it did have a tremendous effect. So we're really sort of trying to normalize this and for people to see this little symbol and then remembering that they should be using lights. So when we work with behavior change, and the tool that I want to share with you here today is a tool that we many years ago developed with Futera, who is one of the old agencies in this space as well, which is great, and they're still around, which is amazing. And so we developed this little tool together, and basically the changemaker cards are to be used often together with the people's who behaviors you want to change. So let's say you wanted to do something around this bicycle brief, why not invite cyclists to sit around the table? Or if it's something you use internally in an organization, why not invite your colleagues around and they can brainstorm? They could use these cards to brainstorm. But I'm just going to take you through the three main categories that we use in this context here. And hopefully you'll see some creative, fun examples. And I will try and make some breaks along the way. So if you do have any questions, do fire them in the chat, and I'll get to them. And I can see already now David tuning in there. So good to see you, David. Thank you for joining. And please, the rest of you as well, do ask any questions if you have. And anyone else wants to say a little good morning or whatever, please do so, or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. I'm in London at the moment, so around here it's 3. It's actually 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. Good. So let's talk about changing the product first, which is really probably the most easy way, because to be honest, changing behaviors is extremely difficult. So why ask people to change behaviors if you can do that and build that into the very product? So that's the first category we're going to look at, building behavior change into your very product. This is an initiative I've seen from Uber, and to be honest, I really absolutely love it. Probably a lot of brands would be like, why the hell would you show public transportation in your ad when they're actually trying to sell Uber ride? But it really does showcase a very honest way of giving people a choice, because by the end of the day most people might not jump in that tube seat or that underground seat because they want the comfort, but maybe if it's way cheaper, you arrive at the same time, you're stressed, this might be actually a really viable option that you'd be very happy about. So this is built into the little tech product. One of the brands we have worked with over the years is Carlsberg, the Carlsberg Group, and we haven't touched this specific initiative here, but was something that I judged in Cannes during the Sustainable Development Goal Alliance. And as you might know, a lot of brands have tried to get rid of all this plastic waste, and obviously this time the six-pack ring. And basically what Carlsberg did was they added a little glue between the cans, and in that way getting rid of the plastic. But this, for me, is a little bit of a shocker and an eye-opener in terms of how difficult it is, because basically all people had to do was this to kind of pull them apart, so the glue to fall apart. But there was a lot of pushback. A lot of people didn't get it, didn't know how to do it. So there's a long sort of educational part around this, which is very good to think about before you launch these types of initiatives, because Carlsberg have ended in some markets actually pulling this back, which I believe is a bit of a shame, but it does take time. Some of you might also have seen a big effort from Coca-Cola across most of the brands right now. We can discuss whether this is going far enough for Coca-Cola, but at least now they added this little plastic ring so the cap actually stay on. I don't know how many of you have seen this. I have seen that across markets at the moment. So obviously, hopefully this is a way of capturing that plastic and for it not to end up in that little albatross that Chris had photographed pictures of. So this is sort of the first part. Think about if you can tweak the product. It's not always easy, as we saw with Carlsberg, but if you can do it, then you don't have to ask people to change any behaviors, in fact. The next thing I want to talk about is persuasion. So that's the second group. It is probably one of the most classic ones we use in advertising, is actually to influence behavior change through your marketing. This is an award-winning campaign from some years ago. I absolutely love it, called the Pilau Pledge. So this is an island group, and one of the things they wanted to do was to get people to take care of these pristine islands. And so when you actually arrived at the passport control, they would give you this little stamp where you would pledge to protect the nature, and they would give you some guides in terms of what you should and shouldn't do. So an amazing little initiative here, and something they have expanded on in the future. So that's the second category. So product first, then think about if you can persuade them. The third one is a little bit more subtle, but something that we have used in advertising for many, many years, called placement. So how can you subtly sort of influence people? So this is sort of probably one of the most typical ones in advertising, because we are group animals. Probably if I was sitting like this and doing the webinar like this, I'm pretty sure that some of the rest of you on this call might be copying that little behavior. So we copy what we see. And this is typically where I would encourage most of you, depending on where you are on your journey in terms of getting this right. This is a very good place to start. This is something you could even think about should be part of your visual identity, your guidelines, your communication guidelines, because why, if you are selling a shampoo, why would you show the lead actor driving a car when you might as well show a much more sustainable behavior where the lead actor might be on a bicycle? So in this little case, what Dove did, which I absolutely love with this project called It's on Us, was actually creating a free model bank that any other brand could use with diverse talent, diverse models for free. Just saying, if we really want to sort of get more diverse talent in there, this is the way we can do it. You don't even have to think about it. Go use these. So suddenly we do see more diverse talents in the advertising, which is a great way of obviously sort of placing that in there. So these are the sort of three main categories that we're going to talk about here today. So that was a little introduction to the change maker cards. And then what I'm going to do is share a couple of sort of more in-depth example of how they can be used and how we have worked with them as well. And again, if any questions to any of the cases, do ask me in the chat. As I said, I mean, I'm extremely passionate about behavior change, and I am because we are faced with a gargantuan challenge. I mean, just yesterday, the Antonio Guterres, the UN General Secretary, was sort of getting a bit more heated rhetoric. He has talked about how we're on a pathway to hell in terms of the climate emergency, and yesterday he sort of reinforced that and saying we are on a highway to hell, which kind of reminds me of the good old AC/DC track. I'm sure that that's a reference that will sort of fly over somebody's head, but highway to hell. But it really does showcase the urgency of all of this. I mean, I've reiterated this fact in other of our webinars, but in Denmark, the average citizen's carbon footprint is 13 tons. And if we need to reach the 1.5 Celsius, I actually need to get down at 2.5. So there's a lot of behavior change that needs to be unlocked. So in my book, The Hero Trap, one of the things I looked at was obviously sort of the motivation and what drives people. And one of the key tools was obviously shifting the whole leadership away from a navel-gazing focus on saying, what is our role as a company, to being a transformative force in people's lives by asking, who can you help people become sure, helping push people on their journey towards living more sustainably, whatever it is, whether healthier or cutting down on carbon emissions, etc. If you scan that little QR code, you can know a lot more about the error, but I've been talking a lot about that anyway. And the secondly, which is also very important, is look at people's lives. You know, what makes a holistic human being? What makes a happy human being? Happy me, happy you. If we divide it into sort of 12 categories, these are kind of good to look at when you start sort of planning some of your behavior change stuff. Um, Whether you can tie it to personal development, whether you can make it tied to fun or friends or mindfulness or whatever it might be. Just as a little sort of pre-roll to what we're going into now. So figure out sort of the life-centric sort of benefits that you can look at here. And also because most of the time, let's be honest with ourselves, we are pretty lazy human beings. You need to make it as easy as possible. And I think especially today when there's a big pushback against a lot of this sort of value messaging around sort of climate and sustainability. So see if you can break it down to the typical ones: price, quality, and convenience. That is still what drives marketing. So let's have a look at products, and let me show you some sort of simple ways that you can work with this in sort of some terms of either maybe inventing a whole new sort of product category that would drive behavior change. Maybe you edit your current product, or you default on the behavior that you want to change. Uh, the default one, let's begin with that one. I mean, how do you reset the default to the sustainable one? So put that sustainable behavior into the very product. Let me give you one good example here. Obviously, you know, there's a tremendous amount of water that is being used when you shower. So how can you get rid of that? And here, what they've done, they built a all-in-one sort of shampoo conditioner, so it's much easier to get that done. Or a project like this, which I absolutely love. It's a project, again, that was picked up in Cairn about a couple of years ago from the Sustainable Development Goal Alliance. The challenge here was a big one across countries, which is in fact school children. I think for those of you who have small kids that goes to school, you know, they bring home diseases, etc., and the whole family becomes sick. And obviously a lot of that we have learned during COVID with the benefits of a very simple act, which is hand washing. But how do you get kids just having fun, playing out in the schoolyard, etc.? How do you get them to wash hands? And what they did was, in fact, they created these chalk sticks, and built into the chalk stick was the soap. So when people were writing on the board in the school, then they would actually get the soap on their hands, and that way already preventing a lot of these diseases. So very clever little creative hack that I absolutely loved. Real way also for Stable and the company behind it to show care. So yeah, first up, begin with the product. It's much too difficult to ask people to change behavior, so build it into the product. That's my key message for you here today. And as I said, again, we use this in a co-creation mode. So asking people what and how they can come up with ideas to sort of think about a sustainable default. time for some water, and hopefully also for some questions from you here as well. And I know I can see Andy is sharing a lot of links here as well with you today. That brings me to the second category that I talked about, which is placement. So basically the sort of subtle influencing of behaviors through communication. And I absolutely love this little category because it's about working cleverly about, for example, taking a non-sustainable behavior and making it low status, or taking a sustainable behavior and making it high status. I mean, one good example, remember the good old days where we had these reusable coffee mugs. And I think in the beginning, people looked at you quite oddly when you walked up to the coffee bar and you brought your own little mug. Today, that has become commonplace and much more high status. We've seen the same if we look at a lot of the plant-based milks in a lot of countries. I can definitely speak volumes to how it is in London. You know, if you ask for regular cow milk, people kind of look at you a little bit weird. So plant-based milks like Oatly has really succeeded in sort of changing a category to become high status. So just to kick off with a little film about how you change status around PET, around plastic bottles. And this film might not make a lot of sense for you if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, but I'm sure that most of you out there have seen the Game of Thrones. And if not, just enjoy it. Maybe go see it tonight. So let's just, Andy, play this next little film.
Shame. 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 Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame. How dare you? Shame. 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 Here's your sparkling water, Mr. Mountain.
Why are you stupid? Why are you carrying shameful, polluting plastic bottles? Don't you know you're hurting Mother Earth? Mother Earth has given us so much. The birds, the bees, the ocean, Matthew McConaughey, peanuts. Why would you destroy all these beautiful creations?
I don't know. I don't know.
Stop. With SodaStream, you can make sparkling water at home in the touch of a button. Hey, Steve. Hello. Just the way you like it. Without carrying heavy plastic bottles and pissing off Mother Earth. Can you hear the dolphins cry? SodaStream. Fuck plastic bottles. Holy Mother Earth.
Yeah, a classic play on status, but if you also think about it, it talks about convenience, it talks about price. So a very hard-hitting commercial here from SodaStream that I really, really like and enjoyed. I hope you liked it too. Um, so obviously with status, it is just turning a better behavior into something that's high status, which is, I think, pretty self-explanatory in this case. If we then talk about showcasing, then how do you place sustainable behavior sort of front and center of what you do? And you can say in some certain ways, this is also sort of built into the very product, but it's also sort of showcasing it. This was an initiative done by Lux, the soap with the lum, and the whole idea was for you to get a much better idea about how you can detect lumps in your breast much more early stage. So partly education and partly a little hack of product. The same way you can say about this little campaign, I absolutely love, run by Fashion Revolution. The whole idea was to bring a focus to fast fashion and where that clothing was made. So the idea was actually for people to take part in this and make it a much more participatory, democratic, and activistic campaign. You could turn your clothing inside out, and people can then see the label, and you can have a conversation around things like labor conditions and where's the clothing made and what might be the condition of those folks that have done your H&M t-shirt that you bought or your Gap t-shirt that you bought cheaply. So a very sort of clever way of putting the sustainable behavior front and center and showcasing that. Lastly, normalizing. How do you make it visible and normal? And I've, as I showcased in the beginning with the bicycle campaign where we changed the bicycle symbol to make having lights in the bicycle the normal thing. I think one example that is sort of very clear and easy in the diversity and equity space is what most of us today actually now take for given, but this wasn't the case a couple of years ago. Obviously, the change of the emoticons to be much more diverse and represent people much more broadly, and by that way, sort of normalizing this stuff. So we talked about product, we talked about placement, and as I said again, the category placement is a really, really interesting one because it's those smaller things quite often. I know that I showed you a film, I know I showed you the alarm and Fashion Revolution thing, which might be a bit more campaigny, but as I said, it can be the very, very small things in terms of what actors you use, in terms of what they're eating in the commercial. They don't need to eat a beef, they don't need necessarily to drink red wine while they're having the dinner if you're running a commercial. Think about all these smaller things, and especially also internally in your company. How do you want to showcase that better sustainable behavior to your staff and employees and colleagues? It's a very, very important point as well here. So this is probably the one that most of you are more familiar with, which is sort of the persuasion part, where you actually use your marketing efforts, your campaign efforts to actively influence behaviors. Especially these days with the Green Claims Act and a lot of the pushback and criticism we see these days, it's good to think and rethink whether you need to do it in marketing, or you can use product or persuasion. And good to see you there, Shika, all the way from India. So very good. So we got a bit of US, we got India, we've got a lot of time zones on here today. I'm very, very pleased. And I kind of feel like I'm sitting in the middle here today, calling in from London, and Andy being all the way actually down in South Africa. So we got a good time zone spread here tonight. But so Rafael Ramos de Castro, just good to see you there, Rafa, talks about how to avoid greenwashing. And let me just answer that before we go into the second category around persuasion. How to avoid greenwashing? I think I mean, there's many different types of greenwashing, and probably I should be running a course of this as well, even though I feel it's like a conversation we had a decade ago, and now we're picking it up again. I think one of the key easy ways of avoiding green hack or green washing is uh, to not focus on the lesser two evils. It's so often that you have a company that talks about planting trees or doing something else instead of actually thinking about the majority of the impact of the product. So, for example, if you're a car company and you're talking about tree planting products, tree planting projects, maybe you talk about the little more damaging thing instead of actually highlighting what is actually material to your business. And I think this is where the honesty and the transparency comes into play. So think about where you actually have negative impact and be very honest about that. That's, I think, a very good starting point in terms of avoiding greenwashing. And as I said, a lot of these behavior change things. And last month we had a webinar around openings, among other things, and openings I define as those small little opportunities at the right time, at the right place that can sort of influence people. And it's very good to look at in these days where people have a pushback against all the campaigning. So think about also these behavior change things as a way of getting your brand relevant, playing a meaningful role in people's lives. We know that a lot of people are desperate to know how to live more sustainable, desperate to know how to, for example, eat better. And by using these behavior change tactics, you offer them sort of a helping hand. And it's something I touch a lot on in, obviously, the Hero Trap. I call them transformative brands because the brands show up in our world more as a coach rather than a hero. So thank you, Rafa, for that question. A very relevant question, a question I get a lot these days. So, to persuasion, how to use marketing campaigning to actually change behaviors. We won't have time for all the different ways you can do it, but we will, in this little webinar, focus on 3 of them. So, fun, reward, and time. And let's and we might actually also, I might actually touch on the messenger as well. So it's not completely true here. I might actually touch on the 4th one, a messenger. But let's touch into the first one, the ask. If you want to change behaviors, ask for it. Ask people directly. It doesn't need to be more difficult than that. Ariel turns of 30 is probably one of the most famous categories and campaigns in this category. Obviously, thanks to the enzymes in the washing powder, you don't need to wash at high washing cycles. The enzymes are actually the ones that clean the clothes. And I think today the technological advantages, I think, goes all the way to 15 degrees. I think, don't hold me up on that, but I think it's all the way down at 15 or at least 20. So obviously asking people to turn to 30, this was quite a successful campaign in getting people to do that and normalizing that, and obviously cutting down on use of electricity. So an important campaign here. A campaign from a completely different place during religious festival in India. Lifebuoy, the Unilever owned soap company, wanted to promote a better hand washing. A lot of people around during this religious festival. So what they did was just on the roti bread, stamping this little message: did you actually wash your hands with Lifebuoy? So I think quite a good demonstration about what I talked about in terms of openings, the right place at the right time. So I did tell you that there was a 4th category. As you can see, when you look at the Changemaker cards, there are a couple of more, but I really want to talk about the messenger, and especially in today's climate where there seems to be a tendency to make everything black and white. It's a very sort of value, almost like a value war that's going on right now. We see that in the US, obviously the Democrats versus the Republicans, where political ideas and attitudes create a divide between people. So how can you use someone who the target group listens to, whom the target group trusts. And that's the whole idea about messages. So not so much the message, but who delivers that message. It's a pivotal way of changing behaviors, especially now when we see these wars on values and pushback on ESG, environment, social, and governance efforts. One example I absolutely love here is an initiative all the way from Brazil. And what they did was saying, wait a moment, tattoo artists spend a lot of time looking at our skin, and especially when they actually do tattoo us. So why not get them to be the ones who look out for skin cancer and changes in your skin? Or maybe I actually want to have a conversation with us around uh, educating us around what we need to look out for and some of this stuff. So an amazing little campaign where you trust the guy, you're there, you're in the chair with him or her. So a good way, in a subtle way, of getting the message out there. Or a much more simple example here, but why not, if you want to get people in the Midwest to talk about climate change, get one of the farmers to do it. So again, very, very simple way of doing it. As we've seen recently as well with, for example, if we look at the Catholic world, again, religion, we have seen Pope Francis, we have seen other religious leaders talk to the urgency around climate change and even come out together and saying, climate change is real, something that's very, very important for people with religious beliefs. So think about who is the right messenger to deliver that message. This is one of my favorites, fun. Behavior change doesn't need to be boring. It can be a lot of fun. And so how do you make it more fun for people to change behaviors? I love this one, and especially when we co-create with people whose behaviors we want to change. This is one that absolutely generates a lot of ideas. So let's go to where Andy is actually based, all the way down in South Africa. This is Camps Bay, Cape Town, a place that I spend a lot of time on as well. When I was a kid, I hated when my mom had to put sunscreen on me. So let's look at this brilliant example of how to use fun to change behaviors. Let's roll this. Oh, I always love these types of behavior change campaigns, and sometimes when I look at judging with Uncan or D&D, this is the type of work that I always do admire. So Nick Howell did share a little comment here, which I think is good to sort of mention. Thanks, Nick, for joining here today. Where he says that, yeah, politics have become much about myth making, and myth making versus lawmaking, and that's also why sort of brands are quite reluctant to get involved. And obviously, because what tend to happen, and I agree with you, Nick, there is that sometimes companies' efforts are being pulled into the politics and they're being politicized, whether you're on the one side of the aisle or the other. So Alex has a question here, and thank you so much, Alex, which is about the environmental impact of this campaign. We just saw the sun slide from Nivea. I'm not necessarily sure what you refer to, if it's the sunscreen itself, which probably isn't the best for our oceans. There are lots of other sunscreens out there that probably are better for our oceans, if that's what you mean, Alex. But in general, this is not easy times. I mean, if you do something around social issues, people might raise an environmental question. If you do something in the environmental space, people might raise questions around social issues or health issues or other things. So, what I always encourage people to do is just to be much more prepared, and obviously use the opportunity we have today with digital. What I would say is put it up on a website. So if you run an ad like this, if you do an initiative like that, have it on the website, have it somewhere, so you're transparent and honest about those challenges. I think that's always the best way of doing that and avoiding criticism, because if it is being raised, at least then you can come back and say, but hey, wait a moment, look at our website. Another good way of doing it is just to be bold. I mean, I had the pleasure of interviewing the global CMO of Oatly not too long ago, John Schoolcraft, at Advertising Week in London. And he shared an initiative they did when they faced a lot of the pushback from taking investment from Blackstone and whatnot. And they have a website called fuckoatly.com. Go and check it out. And they just gather all the criticism that people have around Oatly. So they're very transparent about it. They even have an answering machine, so you can call and you can leave your little message, and you can go and listen to people's messages and the criticism, etc. So head on with the criticism. I think that's a very, very great way of doing that. And thank you there, Andy, for sharing fuck Oatly, because there was a bit of an abbreviation there, fkoatly.com. Anyways, let's go all the way to Denmark. The canals of Denmark, and to an initiative that Carlsberg and many others are supporting, which are these green kayaks. And basically, if you're in the city of Copenhagen, if you're a tourist, if you're a resident, you want to be on the canals. You want to go and see the city from the water side. First of all, because it's now so clean, so you can actually swim in the canals. It definitely wasn't when I grew up, and we actually are seeing finally fish and algae and other things sort of coming back. So it's becoming much more of a lively canal there, which used to be a very busy shipping lane. But the green kayaks is basically, you can borrow this kayak for free if you promise to collect some plastic that might be floating there on the service. So you help clean up the canal, you get a free kayak ride. It's a joy, honestly. Go do it. It's often fully booked, but they're expanding the program more and more. And I know that they're running a similar program in Amsterdam right now. So really, really lovely effort there from Green Kayak. Reward. There's so many ways that you can reward people by giving them that acknowledgement of doing the right thing. And I think whether it's in relationship or whatever it is, we like that little acknowledgement, that little pat on the shoulder that said, okay, we acknowledge it, we see that you're doing the right thing. And especially now, I think people need that little extra pat on the shoulders. It might not be enough just for the tokenism, but just show that you do these things. One example is eco parking. I think that Hyundai did when doing a little promotion for their electric cars. The thing was, if you put in a plastic bottle in this parkometer, you will get 30 minutes of free parking. One bottle, 30 minutes of free parking. So actually normalizing this behavior, this is an initiative that obviously run in countries that doesn't have a proper recycling infrastructure. So a very, very powerful initiative here. Again, with this phase, what Rafa talked about, greenwashing claims in terms of the lesser of two evils, maybe not. I still do think it's a good initiative. At least it's aligned with Hyundai's electric side of the business. But again, obviously you can talk, if you want to prevent that, on the website or on this little Parkometer about what Hyundai does in this space. Another one I really love from rewarding was from a trip I had many years ago to Myanmar. Just as Myanmar opened up again, it's obviously so heartbreaking to see what's going on today with the military junta and all that stuff. So my thoughts go out to all of you in Myanmar. But this was a supermarket chain in Myanmar, and basically what they wanted to do was they wanted to get people to keep using the reusable shopping bag, because you actually have to use it for a very long time before it's better than the plastic shopping bag. So what they did, they created a priority lane in the supermarket. So if you show up with the reusable shopping bag, you jump the queue, as you might be used to in the airports with a priority access. It's a really beautiful initiative that I wish more countries were adopting. So a last little one in reward. There's so many ways you can do it. This is done in collaboration with the police. I think this was happening in Mumbai, at least somewhere in India. This was also a piece of work I judged some years ago, where they obviously wanted to sort of people to stop honking. So if people kept honking, there would be a red light. As soon as people stopped honking, green light. So a very good way of sort of influencing people with the right behavior. The next little campaign I really love. Organ donation is still a very vital issue and challenge today. So how do you reward people for donating their organs? Let's just roll this little amazing piece of film called Second Chance.
The Second Chances Initiative is an awareness program for the desire and need for more donors in Canada. And what we're doing is our officers are out there always pulling over individuals for traffic infractions. But if they happen to notice that the individual being pulled over is a registered donor, they're giving them a second chance.
So since you're a registered organ donor, it means you're willing to give someone a second chance to live. So today I'm going to give you a second chance as well, and I'm just going to give you a warning.
Seriously?
And I'm going to thank you for being an organ donor.
I think it's a tremendous initiative. It makes it very clear that you've been stopped legitimately, and when he looks at your license and says, "You're giving somebody a second chance. We're giving you a second chance."
I mean, we've all been pulled over, and you know how frightening that could be to have the ability to redo that and not make that same mistake because you did sign up to be an organ donor. I think it's phenomenal. I think that's wonderful.
If somebody's going to show their kindness by giving their organs, it's nice that the police can give them a second chance as well.
I believe that Second Chances has the opportunity to motivate more people to sign their registration cards because it's an encouragement. It almost rewards them in a way to give them a second chance.
If you're a registered organ donor, that's excellent. Share that with family and friends. Maybe you can convince them to be an organ donor as well. And if you're not, I hope that you consider it.
Because of them, I have a second chance, and my kids have a mom. So I'm very grateful.
So great little initiative here in terms of organ donation, and something that obviously might get more people inspired to donate their organs. Again here, Nick got a little bit of a comment. Also, I guess, keep up the optimism though, Nick. That there is and it's a good point, Nick, that there's a sort of constant weaponization of convenience versus what's actually best for the planet. And you are right, and I see this have changed a bit over the years, and it really depends on where you're at, whether you're global south or global north. But there's definitely in the early days, was the first book, Good Advertising. It was a lot easier to work with sort of the value-driven argument. You do this because it's the right thing to do. Today, it seems to be a bit harder to do that, and especially also now in an economic environment that's not as great as it used to be. And this is where sort of make it easy for people. But another part of the make it easy, as I said, was can you build that into the product in the very beginning? And it's probably a much better way. So instead of asking people to save on the water, build, you know, shampoo and conditioner into an easier way. Or so start with the product and no behavior change, but build it into the product. I think that's always obviously the best way to get that done. The last one I want to talk about today, and then we'll have some time for questions, a little bit of a wrap up, is introduce new behaviors at the very right time. And this sort of correlates a little bit with what I talked about in terms of openings. Put the message at the right time, at the right place. This is about the timing. So let me give you 2 quick examples here. When you have bought a new electric Volvo, why not also sell them a renewable green electricity contract? You have the car. Maybe you would, at this point in time, actually rethink your electricity provider to a provider that supports the energy transition. So a great initiative by Volts. So the right time. Or this one, which I think is a little cute little thing where you actually get a heart starter with your purchase of a car. So educating people around how you can actually save lives. And suddenly you have a lot of cars out there in the streets, and a heart starter is obviously a really, really important tool in preventing death from heart attacks. And now you have a lot of cars driving around and an infrastructure for that. So when you buy a car, there's a little conversation around that. So these were the sort of 13 cards that we use in the Change Maker card series. And typically, as I said, what we do is we typically begin working with those people whose behavior we want to change with these cards. They come as small play cards, and people can discuss these different things. You know, could fun convince you? What reward would you think is good? If we talk about time, what would be the best time to kind of get the messaging out there? What might be the right messenger for you? So when we get that, typically in a sort of co-creation format, we might get David, good to see you there. No problem. I hope, yeah, amazing to see you in Copenhagen this summer. Looking forward to that, David. Thanks for joining. So we begin with that and co-create a lot of ideas with the people whose behavior we want to change. Secondly, then we take that into the creative development. So we look at the ideas, we talk about the ideas, and then the creators at the agency, all together with the client, or the internal marketing department with the client, look at that, and we nurture those ideas. We select those ideas. So sometimes we get 100, couple of 100 ideas out in the very co-creation phase in the beginning, and then we mature that to 10, 15, 20 good ideas. So this is a really, really powerful tool in terms of enabling and creating change. So if you're interested in this and want these Changemaker cards, you're welcome to send an email to booking@thomaskolster.com and do add in the subject line behavior change. So and then we can send you a copy of this, and you can work with these. You're also, of course, more than welcome to get a hold of us. Lastly, obviously, this also ties together with sustainable development goals. And there are some goals out there called the Good Life Goals, where they take these pretty sometimes aloof goals out there and make them very tangible in your life. So giving you some behavior change things you can do in your life to support the 17 goals. So this is also a very good little Kickstarter to get your creative juices flowing and thinking about these things. So the Good Life Goals, and this is also something I have in the book, The Hero Trap, at the very back, to sort of as a good reminder in terms of where you can start all of this stuff. So it's been such a joy to do this again, this time focusing on behavior change. I think it's a topic that's gaining more and more popularity. It almost seems a bit like a roller coaster going up and down, but especially the advertising industry has a strong focus on that these days, obviously, probably because of the guilt consciousness it has in terms of the almost $1 trillion it spends on sometimes doing exactly the opposite, influencing behaviors, not for the better, but for the worse. So obviously our industry seems to be quite captivated by that. But these behavior change tactics are a really, really great tool, I think, in a time where there are more pushback against a lot of this type of communication. So think about how you can build it into the product, or if you can place it and normalize it, or obviously put it into more of a campaign activity. So that's what I had for you here today. If you want to know more about, for example, the Hero Trap, or some of the work that we do in terms of creating new types of leadership, we do have a masterclass going on as well. It's 12 video episodes with tons of exercises that you can use, and Andy can share a code for you here in the chat, so you can get a bit of a, I think it's like a 20% discount if you sign up today. So that's a really, really good way of getting going on your learning journey. So creating the right foundation in terms of transformative brand, and from then build on with what I talked about here today, the behavior change cards. I don't know if there is any last minute questions here today. I would love to answer those here the last 4 minutes before we wrap up our little webinar. And thank you so much for dialing in from the US, from India, and all over the world. So it's so great to see all of you here today. So let's see if there are any last minute questions or comments. I know sometimes it demands a little bit of thinking in terms of what should I actually be asking. As I said again, the work with behavior change is fun, and thank you, Alex. And I think it's really, really powerful to open up the creative process in terms of whose behaviors you want to change. And we work with everything from alcoholics to people who work on the factory floor, to lots of different people. And I think there's so much change that can be untapped in taking this topic much more seriously. And it begins from how you build the brand and how you build the leadership. So I think that's a pivotal point here as well. It seems like you have no more questions, and that does hopefully speak to the fact that I did answer them as we went along, or maybe you just need a little bit more time to digest it. First of all, thank you so much for joining this webinar. As is custom right now, we do usually run a webinar every 6 weeks or so. Do share those with your community. Invite your colleagues. If you're from sustainability, invite your marketing colleague. If you are from marketing, invite your sustainability colleague or your CFO. Broaden these conversations. It's so important that we don't just keep those within a small select group of people. Change is difficult. It really is. If you look at smoking, your doctor can tell you to quit those cigarettes. Your loved ones can tell you to quit those cigarettes. They can try and scare you away from smoking by putting these awful cancer-ridden lungs on the packaging. But by the end of the day, the only one who can quit those cigarettes are you. And so that's why how I wholeheartedly believe in any change begin with you. And I hope you want to be the change ambassador going forward. Thank you so, Nick. And yeah, thank you for joining the session at Advertising Week as well. Hope all of you have a fun, impactful week ahead, and hopefully see you online very, very soon. Thank you.